time. First up, left to right, Anthony, what are your thoughts on the show? 30 seconds or less, please.
Man, I actually was reading something just yesterday, and somebody said this, and it really hit me too. It's simple though. It says y'all got to remember y'all watching a reality show, not a documentary. So I think that people lose sight of that. They don't understand that this is real life. Preachers have real life. We're trying to see behind the scenes of what preachers go through. So if you can't handle that, then don't watch it. But it's funny because a lot of the haters, they say they don't want to see it, they don't want it, they don't want it to happen, they want to petition it, but I bet you they were at home watching it.
That's what matters. The views, the interactions, the tweets, the retweets, the Facebook posts. Jay Noe, your thoughts on the show as a whole?
I think the show is great. I think the idea of the show is great. I still say this. I said it before. I say it again. I said this about 3 or 4 years ago, that we should do church reality shows, and didn't nobody want to hear your boy Jay No Way. But now everybody making all this money. I need my credit. I need my royalties, playmakers, because y'all messed me up. Y'all didn't want to listen to your boy Jay. I think it's a good idea. I think the show is great. I think the perspective is great. And I'm glad they're doing it because what else is there left to do? Why not? I don't see a problem with them doing it at all. Now the outcry is a total different thing. I know we'll get to that in a second, Kev. But I'm glad that they're doing the show.
B. George, your thoughts?
I never want to know how the sausage got made.
Right.
So, I think this is a bad idea. You ever seen? I mean, it's just like you're about to see a car accident go down. You don't want to see it happen, but you just can't turn away. And
that's a great point, and that's the sentiment of a lot of people. They love their favorite restaurant, but they don't want to see what goes on in the kitchen. My thoughts were, what I initially thought from the trailer, I was like, man, this is a train wreck waiting to happen. But the actual show, way calmer than what I expected. Way tame. The production quality is up there with any other show. And like Ant said, to me, it is a reality show. It's entertainment, so it is edited to create drama where there might not have been some, and to drum up what might have been very small. So, and the other thing to me is you have to, in order to keep a show on TV, it has to be interesting. So the people who produced this want it to be on, so they have to edit it to make it interesting. So now that we have our thoughts, let's go back the other way, and let's talk about the reaction you guys saw on social media. V. George, what did you think of Black Save Twitter's response? Because it was up there with scandal type tweets Preachers of LA was on.
It was varying. It was, you had some people, just cracking jokes and just making light of the whole situation. The expedition of the bishop was the funniest joke of the night, and we all had a whole lot of fun with that. But the thing that stuck out to me was the people that didn't watch the show and was tweeting that they didn't watch the show and telling the people that did watch the show not to have an opinion about it. Us saved folks shouldn't be talking about saved people out in the public like this. And I'm like, we didn't go to no board meeting and come out and be telling no secrets. This is a television show. That is distributed all over the country. That was my biggest beef. Like, I don't care. Like, everybody, I always say, if we all had the same opinion, life would be really, really boring.
Right.
So I don't expect everybody to agree with what I gotta agree with. Like, I mean, but there's the different lash outs. Then people started coming for the musicians again, because that's the easiest thing to do. Because nobody trips about playing musicians anymore, right?
Right.
But I mean, those are the things I saw. Everything like pretty much kept me laughing. But I really didn't like it when they kind of twisted it on the musicians. Like, this guy is the bishop was sitting in his second home that he turned into a man cave,
right? Because
his wife had too many clothes, and he's complaining about we gotta pay the musicians. Oh, okay.
George is a musician, guys, if you haven't noticed.
Yes.
He plays at the church.
I am. If you don't want to pay us, don't hire us. Stop complaining.
The
Shut
man
up.
cave is something I desire in my own life. I thought a man cave was the basement. This man had a whole cave. I was like, oh, baby, yes.
The main house.
That's what
The
I
whole
need.
house. Yeah, forget that.
J No A, your response to Twitter's response.
I think the people watching the show are more controversial than the show itself. The show depicts two things: men of God and a lifestyle that most people don't have. What everybody is the saints. Let's just call everybody saints and Christians that are watching from the people that we're talking about right here they're Christians. So they're passing judgment and they're passing their own personal convictions onto these people that they're seeing on TV. Just because they do these things doesn't mean that they're wrong and doesn't mean that you're right or they're, it doesn't mean that. And they want them to fit into their loophole of life. For example, if they're showing the pastors in a bar, they're going to say, well, they shouldn't be there. That's not where church folks should go. We don't drink. We don't do that. In reality, if they went to the bar to pull somebody out, I'm not saying that that's the best thing to do. That's your own personal conviction about why somebody should or shouldn't do anything. It doesn't make it wrong. And I think when people spread around an opinion so much, it doesn't make your opinion right. It's an opinion. And I think just that's what people do. They had a Kev, you said this. I'm going to take your line, but you said it. I'm giving you credit and cite you. It's a preconceived notion about what they thought the show was going to be. And if they weren't raised to be this way or outspoken or preachers doing this, preachers are pimps and all that stuff, that gets so old to me because I don't feel like anybody on the show is pimping anybody. They're all successful preachers. They've all been in the business for over 20 plus years, and they've had a measure of success doing what they love to do and doing what they feel God has called them to do. People just pass their own personal convictions off to them because we're watching them on TV, and I wouldn't have done this, and they shouldn't have did that, and the Bible said this, the Bible said that.
Anthony Davis, your response to what happened on social media.
Man, I'm honestly shocked at the church. How we always say not to judge and, with the sin and all that stuff like that. But then, like, as soon as we have something like this, everybody's quick to judge. And like Jay said, even before it came out, people were already judging. And so it was almost like they were ready. Like they had their hands on their phones or on their computers ready to just do negative, even if it would have been all the way positive. If they would have just said, you know what, this whole reality show is about a Bible documentary, they would have still been hating on it. So no matter what they did in the show, people were ready to go at it. That's just me.
Absolutely agree. One thing I want to touch on was Victor George Smith talked about the flashy lifestyle. I've been to church my whole life. Every pastor I've known has had a great life, but they've also been smart men when it comes to business. For example, our pastor in North Carolina had a bricklaying business and made his money that way, but people don't ever, they assume if you don't have a regular job, you're just taking people's tithes and money, and they never assume that you had money any other way. Noel Jones said he had $1 million from a business prior to him ever speaking a word, but people want to assume he gets all his money from speaking. And the best thing that I have learned from this is from Ant's dad, who was a pastor, and me and Jay and Ant all worked in ministry. And Pastor Davis had a nice house, nice car, because Pastor Davis knew how to handle his money that he earned prior to ever being a pastor. He was a smart businessman, invested, had homes, had property, had retirement funds, had all those things. But people come into church and see Pastor Davis driving a Cadillac and assume he spent somebody else's money, and they weren't at the church when Pastor Davis was driving the Gray Ghost, the Bullet, the two-door. They weren't there when he was working 2 jobs and being a pastor. So once, you know what I mean? So they never want to hear that. They assume you're spending, the person's money, and they never a lot of the pastors that are gospel singers first make their money on CDs, or Joel Osteen, for example. He sells books like crazy.
Yeah.
A lot of times they don't even take a salary from their church. Same thing as my pastor now. He sells books like crazy, but, people just assume that he's pimping out the congregation. And maybe some pastors are, but let's learn, like Ron Gibson said, you don't know my story, and something else that rhymed. I don't remember how he said it. Something like that. Okay, but before we go, we want to talk about the most dramatic moment in the show. It was Bishop Clarence McLendon versus Dietrich Hatton, and the issue was should a preacher take an honorarium, and should he have an entourage? And Clarence McLendon came to the man cave. The setup was he had like 4 people with him, and he said out of his own mouth, when I travel, I have my team with me. And Dietrich was saying, you don't need all that. You can just go by yourself, and you should be able to accept more engagements that way. Anthony, where do you fall? Team Clarence or Team Dietrich?
Man, you know, honestly, when I first watched it, I was all in Dietrich. I was like, man, you right. Yeah, why don't you say something? I want to hear what you got to say about it. And it's almost like at first McLendon was just trying to avoid the question. And then also at the same time, it felt like he was being disrespectful when he said, yo, son, you know, like, son, hey, son, you know, something like that. And it was like, wait a minute, you calling me a son? We're the same age. Huh?
He called him young man, too.
Yeah, young man. But, you know, when he, at the end of the show, when I actually was thinking about it, and then Jay also sent me something on Facebook that Clarence McLendon was talking about, it made sense that, you know, when he goes out, that the ministry does pay for him, but he pays for his adjutants and his people to come with him. So it made sense how he dealt with it. I think the only thing I said I had an issue was how he came about calling him the names and son and young man and all that stuff. But other than that, I think he had a good point at the end of the show of expressing why he needed those people.
So who do you two? You have to choose one. Who do you agree with?
Man, it's a toss-up, man. I would say still. I still say Dietrich. I say Dietrich has some good points, and I really wanted to hear. I think the viewers at that time wanted to hear his points, and I think that after the fact, Clarence told us. But I think at that point it was something that we wanted to hear.
Okay, J-No-A.
I think that's clever editing, though, Ant. We got to remember, people were tripping about Dietrich telling Ron Gibson to expedite, and Dietrich himself was tweeting that went way longer than what was edited, way longer. So it wasn't just a 5-minute thing, and people were talking about, they were mad at Dietrich for saying, well, you should be more worried about souls than you should be about your singing and concerts and stuff. When in all reality, people didn't know what was going on because none of us were there if you weren't in City of Refuge for that concert. So it was all editing. To go back to your question, Kev, this is what I really think, and I've heard Dietrich's side and I heard McLendon's side, and I really think they're both right. And here's why. It's because if they both feel in their own convictions from God that God is leading them to do what they are doing, then they're right. I can't say what God told Dietrich Hatton to do with what he wants in his ministry and the people that he wants to reach with his message. Nor can I say that it's wrong for McLendon to do what he's doing with taking 4 people with him because of his ministry gifts and what he had. Because McLendon feels that that's what God told him to do, and that's where he's had success in his ministry. So if God is leading both of them, who are we to say that either one of them is wrong in their opinion about anything? All of us can go into the Bible and find scriptures that say McLendon is right, and all of us can go and say Dietrich is right. But God is the one that is directing these guys, and that's what we have to understand. Just to pick a side, I sided with McLendon because I understood what he was trying to say. He was trying to say that this is how I flow, this is how I operate. People talking about, well, he should have just went because it's about the gospel and people should go for free. Do you not think in over his 20-plus years, almost 30 years of service, that man did not do that for years? He has gone to a different place in ministry now. I don't think that he should do that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, those guys do 200 or 300 invitations per year. You have to be selective on what you're going to do.
B. George.
I don't think nobody won this fight. Mainly because it was a fight and they couldn't sit down like 2 adults and have a normal discussion about it. What I did notice was that Bishop McLendon wasn't there for no part of that conversation, and he was clearly just agitated like from the jump of the whole thing. My whole thing with that thing is like they both had solid points. And my initial reaction was to side with Dietrich because basically I understood what he was trying to say, but a lot of times when you even if you're saying something that's 100% fact and 100% truth, it won't be received because of the way you're saying the thing. And he was kind of like, Dietrich was getting at him kind of rough, like, he was like, man, you ain't had all that from the beginning, like he was really getting at him kind of rough. So, Bishop McLendon's, I saw the curl, it just went like that, and then he just kind of flipped. He was just like, listen, son, and then right there, it stopped being a conversation that could be helpful,
Right.
something that could be conducive to the foundation of the man cave. So right then and there, you knew something was wrong. Bishop was telling them to give him 30 seconds. Like, it was just bad. It couldn't get any, from there. And then, you disrespected me. People is getting up and all of that stuff like that. So no matter what happened after that, you wasn't going to listen. Like, both of them are grown men. All grown men have a point where we're going to be like, you know what, I'm not going to listen to this no more. So I don't really knock Bishop for not wanting to hear it no more, and I don't knock Dietrich for trying to make his point. That's just like my son trying to tell me he could beat me in Madden. I'll be like, all right. And then after a while, I get fed up. I'm like, all right, let me take you out real quick. So that's how it went down. Like, they're grown men, man. I don't want to see the sausages get made. I don't want to see it.
Here's my opinion. At first, I was totally my thing with Bishop McLendon wasn't how he ran his ministry. It was more how he came off, right? He was like, I think Dietrich was making his points, but it wasn't a personal shot, But McLendon was like, well, I thought you should go read your Bible. Like, that's a churchy way of saying you go read your Bible, cuz.
Yeah.
But when you are speaking erroneously, then you must be corrected. Like, come on, dude, I am not 7. And then he said, Dietrich said, I'm not as young as you think I am. He's like, and obviously you're not as intelligent as I thought you were either. Hey,
Right.
On me, that's 3 strikes, McLendon. That's 3 strikes. On me, cuz, you don't want to see me in these streets. On me, you don't want to see me. You know what I mean? So